In 2023, the Indian Ministry of Defense encountered a technical bottleneck, and their engineering team has been unable to break through the 30 kilograms payload limit of drones. Unable to independently develop drones that meet the requirements, India finally decided to purchase ready-made military drones from other countries. It is understood that the 400 drones purchased by India at that time were mainly assembled from Chinese parts and were modified versions of Israeli drones. At first, it was generally believed that this was just a simple international cooperation, and everyone expected that the cooperation would go smoothly. But the development of things was unexpected. After entering February 2025, the Indian Ministry of Defense suddenly issued a document announcing the cancellation of an order for 400 drones worth $26 million. This decision quickly attracted widespread attention, followed by analysis and discussion from experts. Some experts pointed out that India's tearing up of this cooperation is actually sending a very clear signal to the United States its position in the anti-China camp. Through this move, India obviously hopes to gain more diplomatic support from the United States. So, what exactly prompted India to make such a decision? What specific support does it hope to get from the United States through this action? If you like our video content, please click to subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you can receive all our latest video content. Now, let's get into today's topic. As we all know, in modern warfare, drones have become an indispensable and important weapon on the battlefield. They not only demonstrate powerful capabilities in intelligence collection, target strikes, electronic warfare, and logistics supply, but can even carry missiles and bombs to carry out precise strikes on enemy targets. It is precisely because of the powerful advantages of these drone technologies that developed countries around the world have gradually realized that drones have become a key component that cannot be ignored on the battlefield. For India, as a country that always aspires to surpass China, it also hopes to make breakthroughs in the field of drone technology. Unfortunately, despite the Make in India strategy that the Indian government has been vigorously promoting in the past few years, it ultimately faces many difficulties in drone technology. In 2023, a report released by the Indian Aeronautical Development Agency pointed out that after 12 years of research and development, the domestic Rustrum drone project has not yet broken through the technical bottleneck of a payload of 30 kilograms. Which also means that India's independent research and development in this field faces huge challenges. Therefore, due to the limitations of technical bottlenecks, India's military drones have had to rely on imports in the past few years. As an important link in the global drone industry chain, China naturally became India's preferred partner. Among them, DJI, as a leading company in the global drone industry, has firmly occupied 70% of the global market with its excellent flight control system, image sensor, and battery technology. According to relevant surveys, in the current Indian civilian drone market, the share of Chinese products remains at 58%. As of 2022, 72% of the 3,000 plant protection drones purchased by the Indian agricultural sector were transformed using the Chinese DJI platform. Even in the US market, DJI's market share exceeds 80%. Therefore, the Indian Ministry of Defense finally decided to purchase 400 drones, which are mainly assembled from Chinese parts and are modified versions of the Israeli Heron drone. It is worth mentioning that the purchase of this batch of drones was initially carried out by India under an emergency procurement clause introduced in 2023. Since the military standoff between China and India in 2020, these drones have been regarded as key deployment equipment for India on the 3,488-kilometer line of actual control. There is no doubt that India purchased these drones mainly to deal with border issues with China, and the purchase parts also include Chinese technology and components. However, China did not object to this international cooperation, but regarded everything as a normal international cooperation. After all, One party is willing to buy and the other party is willing to sell. But just when we all generally believe that this cooperation would proceed smoothly, the Indian Ministry of Defense suddenly announced the cancellation of this cooperation project. So what happened? In February 2025, the Indian Ministry of Defense issued a statement that aroused widespread attention and discussion. They decided to cancel 3 drone procurement contracts with China on the grounds that these drones used Chinese-made parts in their design. India said that Chinese parts pose a risk to national security, so it had to terminate the contract and even proposed to establish a zero Chinese parts review mechanism. India then said that they would begin a strict review of all domestic drones manufactured in the country to ensure that there was no shadow of China. The total value of the order canceled by India this time was about 2.3 billion Indian rubles, about 26.3 million US dollars, involving 400 drones, including 200 medium-altitude drones, 100 heavy drones, and 100 light logistics drones. In the original procurement plan, these drones would be deployed in the Sino-Indian border area to undertake important strategic tasks. In fact, although India is determined to achieve de-Sinicization in the field of drones, some professionals pointed out that India's approach is undoubtedly putting shackles on itself. My point is that these evaluations are not unreasonable. According to the industry report of the Indian Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, although India has repeatedly claimed to produce locally, most of its parts are still dependent on imports. Data shows that in 2023, 70% of India's defense electronic components and 90% of special alloys will rely on imports. And 90% of the high-performance batteries required by the country's drone industry are also imported, of which 65% come from Chinese suppliers. Such a high degree of structural dependence cannot obviously be easily broken by just a few political slogans from India. More importantly, China's DJI drones currently have more than 15,000 patents worldwide, and all aspects from flight control systems to image sensors are autonomous and controllable. Even the US military has to secretly purchase DJI products. In contrast, China's drone production cost is 60% lower than India's. China's supply chain can complete the matching of all parts within 24 hours, while India's factories need a full 3 months to complete the same task. Obviously, India has overlooked China's core position in the global supply chain. After all, China's technological advantages are not only reflected in the field of drones, but also in a number of high-tech industries and electronic products. China is also in a leading position in the world. Among them, the most noteworthy is China's huge advantage in the field of rare earth resources. 80% of the world's rare earth processing capacity is concentrated in China, and many of India's high-tech products, including neodymium iron boron magnets required for drones, are heavily dependent on China's rare earth supply. If China decides to stop supplying, India's drone manufacturing industry will face stagnation and will not be able to meet the growing military and civilian needs. This is precisely the most vulnerable link in India's process of promoting de-Sinicization. On the contrary, for China, the impact of this game is relatively small. This is because China no longer relies solely on the Indian market, but makes up for the lost orders through the broader international market. At present, China's drone exports have covered 150 countries, and 75% of the world's drone parts are also manufactured in China. It is estimated that by 2026, the scale of China's drone market will reach 70 billion US dollars. But at present, the Indian military's concerns about the safety of drones are not groundless. Previously, a drone defection incident occurred on the line of control in Rajouri, India, which has attracted widespread attention to the issue of technical sovereignty of military equipment. Later, India discovered that the drone actually flew to the Pakistan-controlled area, and this drone was one of the models used by the Indian Army, with as many as 180. India's concerns mainly include several aspects. First, the drone may be taken over by hostile forces. Second, China may interfere with the normal operation of these drones through certain technical means. Third, there may be backdoors hidden in electronic equipment, affecting India's national defense security. According to data from Hindustan Aeronautics, the localization rate of India's domestically produced drone Nishant is only 52%, and the core flight control system still relies on imports. Of course, in addition to the security risks of Chinese components mentioned by India, there may be deeper political factors in the cancellation of the drone contract. Just before the cancellation of the contract, Modi is about to go to the United States to meet with Trump to discuss a series of issues, such as tariffs, immigration, and security cooperation. Therefore, India's move was interpreted by many analysts as a political operation by Modi, apparently paving the way for the upcoming visit. After all, Trump recently made it clear that he supports imposing tariffs on Chinese goods. Therefore, India's cancellation of the $26 million cooperation at all costs may be a way to convey its tough stance on China to the United States, in order to win the trust of the United States and further deepen the strategic cooperation between the two countries. However, it is worth noting that although relations with the United States are vital to India, the U.S. policy has always been very clear. If India relies too much on U.S. support, it may eventually face greater pressure, especially in the context of the Trump administration's protectionist policy. India's export deficit to the United States has increased year by year. From 2014 to 2024, the U.S.-India trade deficit has reached $32 billion. Trump has made it clear that India should double its repayment, which may also be a key reason why India decided to cancel the cooperation due to concerns about U.S. retaliation. This unbalanced economic relationship makes India more vulnerable to U.S. pressure. India's technology industry is still in its infancy, and many core technologies and production equipment rely on imports. Without effective, independent research and development and innovative breakthroughs, it will be difficult for India to gain a foothold in the global high-tech industry. So, do you think that India's cancellation of its drone order with China will bring itself greater trouble? To not miss out on our future projects and news updates, please make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications. We will continue to provide you with more exciting and interesting content.